right, we have a guest coming up, and all of our guests are brought to you by Papa John's, the official sponsor of the Colorado Rockies. And our guest right now on the phone is a buddy of yours from around the Horn, Frank Isola. He is a sports writer at the New York Daily News. He writes primarily about the NBA and the New York Knicks. Frank, thanks for joining us, and welcome to the Sports Show with Woody and Les.
Gentlemen, what's going on? Woody Paige. Everywhere I go, people, when they know about Around the Horn, they always ask me two things. How do they keep score on the show? And they ask me about Woody Paige. And I said, you should ask Woody Paige. Since he's won the most, ask him how they keep score.
Well, Frank, what exactly do they ask you about Woody Paige?
They're always they always say, I love that guy, the guy from Denver, Woody. He's hilarious. They say that everyone says, I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10. That's the feedback that I always get. Woody Paige is very popular enough where he writes a book, he's radio, TV, newspaper. He's got it all figured out, this guy, I'll tell you.
Well, thanks for being here, Frank. It's nice to have you on the show. We got to move on now. We're running short.
Enough about you.
Hey, thanks, Frank. Frank is one of my favorite people, and I make fun of him on every blackboard when he's on the show. So I love it. It's been great to work with the new people that have joined Around the Horn. You watched what happened last night with the Wizards and the Hawks and what went on there at the very end. It was my belief that you could sum up that game in 2 words: nay, nay. I wonder your feelings about that, just to start us off.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think you got Denver guys all over the place with JR and Nene. And Nene did not have a good game. Now, he did box out Millsap on the play. The problem was he should have been boxing out Al Horford, who came flying in, got that putback. And Pierce, I guess, right before that hit the big pointer. Instead of yelling out game, he yells out series, which was not smart to do. You know, if you look at the game last night, Atlanta actually had more turnovers than assists. I think it was 25-21. Jeff Teague scored 14 points. Kyle Korver scored 3 points. They went the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter with 1 point, and yet they still managed to win the game. So, to me, Atlanta didn't play that well, and they were still able to get out of there with a win.
Yeah, Frank, it's been a pretty entertaining series, but, I mean, let's face it. Do you believe that either one of these teams getting to the Eastern Conference, don't you think that's going to be the end of the road for them? Because they're going to face either the Bulls or the Cavs, and those two teams seem to be much better than either of the two teams in this other series, Atlanta and Washington.
Yeah, and even though, Atlanta, I think, won the season series from Cleveland. In fact, one of the games they blew them out in Cleveland without Jeff Teague. But LeBron is just too good. He's just at a different level. And I think that he would prevail against either one of those teams. It would be interesting if it was Pierce, because we know the history with Pierce when he played with Boston and LeBron with Cleveland, Miami, and now back with Cleveland. So I think that would be interesting. Pierce has definitely added a little something to the Wizards. First of all, he's taken a lot of pressure off Beal and John Wall, because everyone is kind of focusing on all the things that Pierce says, and Pierce hit the big shot in Game 3. So I think if they were to play, I would give Washington a little bit of a chance, just because because the Pierce factor, and John Wall's had a terrific season. I just feel badly for him. Here it is, the biggest time of the season, and the poor guy's playing with a broken hand. And give him credit, he went out there last night and played. That showed me a little something about John Wall.
Hey, this segment's sponsored by the Blake Street Tavern. 3 bars under one roof. They've got 18,000 square feet. You can roam around, and 60 HD TVs. So whatever game you want, they'll put on one of those HD TVs. It's the Blake Street Tavern. It's located just a couple of blocks north of Coors Field, and it has been named Denver's best sports bar 3 years in a row by Westward.
Okay, here's a multifaceted question. Have the Rockets solved the Clippers, and have the Warriors solved the Grizzlies?
Well, I would say, I don't know about the Rockets yet with the Clippers, but this is a big night for the Clippers. Never been to a conference final in the history of the franchise. You're in your home building, but this is going to be this will be a defining moment for the whole James Harden and Dwight Howard regime. Get this game, try to get this series back to Houston. You put a lot of pressure on the Clippers. I just get a feeling that the Clippers are going to run all over the Houston Rockets, and I think they need Howard to play. Let's face it, the game's at Staples Center. Howard never plays well there. And when he was on the Lakers, he never played well there. The last game they played, he got ejected, so I'm not seeing it. As for the Warriors, and I'm sure you guys caught that after they fell behind 2-1 in the series, and I thought it was good, because then you really got a chance to see how Steve Kerr, rookie head coach, Steph Curry, just anointed the MVP of the league, how they would respond, because this is a team that was cruising all year long. They didn't face any adversity, and they finally fell behind 2-1 in the series. And then how about Phil Jackson sending out the tweet kind of mocking the fact that Steve Kerr and the system that they play. This is like Phil Jackson, one of his few friends in the league. I really thought, like, if you're Steve Kerr, I've heard from a couple of people that Steve Kerr was not happy about that. I thought the timing of that was a little strange. And also, let's remember, I think Phil Jackson is in charge of a team that won 17 games this year, and he's mocking someone who won 67 games during the season.
This is the anniversary, if I'm not incorrect, of the famous Patrick Ewing drawing. Is that correct, Frank? And do you think it's quite possible? Is it quite possible they could do it again next week?
Yeah, Tuesday it's going to be interesting in New York, and there were some people, Woody, who wanted Dave DeBussche's son to represent the team. It's going to be Steve Mills. I cannot believe that Phil Jackson, he wants to be the face of the franchise enough to make about $12 to $15 million a year. Why aren't you sitting there? They won 17 games. He should be the guy sitting at the podium, but it's not going to be him. That drives me nuts. But we'll see what happens. I actually know one of the players, Carl Towns. My family is friendly with his family. He's a terrific kid. So I'm gonna deny that I said this. So I hope he doesn't get drafted by the Knicks.
That's what we say about. I've always said, Frank, if my son was a pitcher, I wouldn't want him to be drafted by the Colorado Rockies for the same reasons.
Exactly. It's like, don't take it too personally. Like, I would think, like, a kid like that, go to the Lakers, all that tradition. They have a history of developing good centers. What if a kid like Karl Anthony Towns went to Minnesota? You get to play under Kevin Garnett. He gets to be your mentor for a couple of years. Chances are he might be in the front office there. You play with Andrew Wiggins. Here's what happens. Whatever the Knicks pick, if they pick first, second, third, fourth, or fifth, it's going to be one of those picks they're going to get. The Knicks are going to market the heck out of it. The poor kid is going to come in, and everyone's going to be expecting him to set the world on fire. And as we all know, when you get a rookie, if you have a rookie that plays a lot of minutes, chances are you're going to be a losing team. And I think they're going to build the poor guy up to be, the great savior, and people are going to be really impatient. I think it's going to be a very difficult situation for whoever gets drafted by the Knicks, especially that first season.
Two responses to what you said. One, Phil Jackson doesn't want to be on the podium because he'd have to have that high chair that he was using when he was coaching, so that wouldn't look comfortable. And you talk about poor kid because he's going to be marketing everything. Poor kid because he's going to have to play with Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, we were talking about alpha dogs in the league yesterday because the Nuggets claim they've got to get an alpha dog either in the draft or free agency. And we were talking about Carmelo, and I said, he's not an alpha dog. He's a guy who scores a lot of points, but he's never taken on that mantle of leadership like LeBron and even Chris Bosh and the other guys that were drafted with him. I mean, they keep talking about surrounding Frank, Carmelo with enough talent. That's not going to ever work because he's not ever going to be a second or third guy. He has to have the ball.
Yeah, and I think, Woody, too, when you look at it now, this is going to be a much different Carmelo. For the first time in his career, he's going to be coming off a major injury. And you know how it is. Carmelo is not blessed with a great body to begin with. So now he's going to be coming off of a major surgery. This season was a lost season for him. You wonder how he's going to respond to the fact that the Knicks, whoever they draft, they're going to make that guy kind of like the face of the team. How will Carmelo respond to that? And you also wonder about a guy like J.R. Smith. When you look to get J.R. in a room, give him some truth serum and ask him, what's the difference between LeBron and Carmelo? And you know that J.R. likes Carmelo, likes hanging out with him. But now that J.R.'s got a chance to play with LeBron, you don't think that he sees the difference? And Carmelo, you're right. The guy's a great scorer. We get that. But LeBron is just at a different level. And I think the New York fans and even the owner of the team, I think that they thought, well, we didn't get LeBron in 2010, but in February of 2011, we got Carmelo. That's like the second best thing. And Carmelo needs to be around the right people. In Denver, you had Sean T. Billups, strong leadership. The year that he played with Jason Kidd, he finished third in the MVP voting. Carmelo is just not that kind of guy. He's not the leader of your team. I don't even think he wants that role. So yet you pay him like he's a superstar. And yes, he's going to score you a ton of points. But also, guys, he had a wacky year last season. I mean, it seemed like the whole season was like he got hurt. He basically hinted that he was going to be shutting it down. But not until the Knicks played in London, and not until he played in the All-Star game. To me, it was really a bad look for him.
Frank can talk about everything. I have to warn you, Frank, who's not on the show today. We discussed Deflategate and the Patriots' responses. I know that amazes you that we would actually talk about the Patriots. But since you're not on Around the Horn today, to give us your feeling, I read the entire rebuttal today, and I thought my head was going to explode after having read the Wells report and everything. But I have a feeling, and Les and I were talking about it, I have a feeling that they may have created enough doubt that it could be that the NFL has to reverse its decision or at least cut the suspension in half. Your thoughts about it?
Yeah, and I think too. I think to me the 4 games was kind of set up where it might get at some point get cut in half where it'd be 2 games. I don't think there's any doubt that Tom Brady knew what was going on, deflated the football. I just don't think it gives you that much of a competitive edge where it decides games. I mean, they talk about Aaron Rodgers liking the ball overinflated. Some of the footballs that they tested in the AFC Championship game, the Colts, I guess some of their footballs were underdeflated, not anything that they probably wanted to do. Maybe the weather did have something to do with that. To me, I equate it to almost like a curved hockey stick where, you're not allowed to do it. It's illegal. I just don't think it's the crime of the century. But I think in the NFL where they are now, and there's so much attention was placed on Ray Rice and some of these other players like Greg Hardy who were involved in this stuff. And let's face it, guys, we know that everyone's talked about the relationship that Roger Goodell has with Robert Kraft. There's certainly an arrogance about a team like the New England Patriots. They win all the time, the way that they carry themselves. And I think Roger Goodell felt, in the best interest of the game, and I don't want to come across like I'm the world's biggest Patriot fan, so I better do something pretty rash here. I don't think there's any doubt that Tom Brady knew that the footballs were deflated. I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah. We want to talk about all of the enterprises of Frank, and I want to start it out with the thing that he's going to jump on the Mets bandwagon as soon as Troy Tulowitzki's there to play shortstop, and he's going to come out with a book next year about the great Mets and his experience with them called Ballpark Frank. And so, but he's got some other things going on right now.
Yeah, Frank, we love your show on Sirius XM NBA Radio, the starting lineup. So hopefully everybody else will discover that. Where is it on Sirius XM? What?
Sirius 207 XM 86, and on the Sirius XM app you could also listen to it.
Beautiful, and you can read Frank at the New York Daily News as well.
And also tell us your Twitter handle because we want to help you get that over 1,000.
I believe the best. What is it? Isola NYDN. Isola NYDN. Let me just say one more thing about Woody Paige and Around the Horn. He's the Walter Johnson of Around the Horn. He has the most wins in the history of the program. All I want is that amount of appearances. So I'm never. I know I'm not going to catch him. I just want to match appearances to his win, and my life will be good. How about that one?
Well, it's nice that you joined us, and we hope you'll do it again, Frank. And it's a pleasure. And I'm sorry I mispronounce your name all the time and started with an ASS.
Thanks. That's after good ball, Woody. Hey, guys, thanks. You're the best.
We'll see you soon,
Frank. Thanks.